but I know
Right.
he's my age, and so he's in good shape. I mean, he takes good care of himself, and having those years off, it's amazing what that could do for you. Because when you're wrestling all the time, even though it may not be a severe injury, but something like a nagging, an ankle twist, just a
Hmm.
simple, you sprain your ankle, but you keep wrestling on it. So that ankle sprain, you go. 6 months from now, you're still sprained, and it's probably getting worse, not better, because you continuously keep I wouldn't say injuring, but aggravating it.
Right.
So then that becomes problematic. So when you have that amount of time to really let your whole body recover, you're lucky, and it's good for, and you can continue, you can keep kind of going, because as we've seen with like technology, supplementation, more people using science to work out smarter, diet to eat better, just for
Right.
recovery purposes, whatever is out there on the market. I'm not saying these guys are on or not on steroids, but if they are using supplementation, if they're getting it from a doctor and doing it the right way, what's wrong with that? I
Hmm.
mean, Joe Rogan, who's a very popular guy in the media business, podcasting, UFC commentator,
Yeah.
comedian, he says, at 53, I believe, that he takes a steroid growth sort of replacement from his doctor. So it's not, if it's done right for an aging man, it's not a big controversy as maybe it once was when they were given to wrestlers in a back alley somewhere,
Right. Right. Just doing it to basically.
to heal,
Well,
to keep up,
well,
really.
didn't they do it for wrestlers in the early '90s to just make them look bigger as well?
They did then, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think that started to change a lot, because I think wrestlers, and that's with learning more and more science coming out and different drugs. You kind of, I think most people that do partake in that, and I don't know who does or who doesn't, but the bigger controversy for that was in a sport like baseball, basketball, football, that's considered cheating because it's a legitimate sport,
Right.
and guys that may not be taking them are getting an unfair advantage. But in the
Right.
world of professional wrestling, really, you're an entertainer, and you can't tell me that a lot of these Hollywood actors, when they show up to a big summer blockbuster or a superhero movie and they're all ripped up, you know,
Mhm.
can't tell me that they're not seeing a doctor for some kind of assistance. I'm not saying they all are, but it has, and I
It
think
gives the appearance of that.
right, and I think it's a little, people are a little more open to it. The fact that they have more education,
Mhm.
and steroids really aren't the drug of choice. There are a lot of older, like I forget what they call them, like regeneration clinics, like where doctors will prescribe growth hormone for patients over a certain age. They'll test their blood and see, because when you hit 40 something, in your late 40s, your natural testosterone, what you have in your body that produces testosterone to help you grow muscularly, it's not there anymore. So
Right.
what growth hormone does, when done properly with a doctor, just helps you get back to the young you, where
Mm.
you were producing that growth hormone that your body just is not anymore. That's why when you get older, your muscles sag, your skin sags, you get wrinkles, and
Mhm.
growth hormone really helps with that. I mean, it doesn't prevent it all 100%, but still, I was always of the belief that if you're doing it under a doctor's consent, and a lot of people are now, because doctors are doing it. I forgot where I was going. I think I was going to Dallas, and they were advertising growth hormone clinics for older gentlemen in the back of a United Airlines, magazine in the
Mhm.
airplane, on the
Hmm.
flight. So, yeah, so it's not like it's not a taboo thing. The only problem with that is it's very expensive.
Mm. Right. Right. And
So it's like everything else. It's only good for the people that could afford it.
right. And to go back to something you said, it's kind of along the same lines with the difference between wrestling and maybe like a football, baseball. This in this case would be
So,
UFC and things like that. Is people getting upset about intergender matches, and it's like
mm.
it's a choreographed athletic experience. It's not going to hurt anybody.
Oh, sure. I mean, from that aspect, I agree 100%. A woman in a man versus a man in a wrestling environment is fine by me, as far as it goes. from a point of view where you're not going to hurt her,
Right.
or you know what I mean. You're not. It's not
Right.
about getting hurt. For me, it was more. I don't like it because. Uh, let me be careful. But I don't like it so much because, if we were pretending this was real, a 200-pound man versus a 120-pound woman, it would not be out of the question to have her do some shit to the guy. But to say that if you turn the tables and made it a UFC fight,
Hmm.
it would be a lot different, just out of weight differential. Regardless if she's a male or a female, just the fact that the weight difference is so much, the heavier person could just lay on them and
Right.
beat them with their weight. So yeah, I think if it's done properly, I have no problem with intergender. I just think it's entertaining. They just gotta be careful because sometimes they go a little overboard in having 220 pound men selling for 5'3", 110 pound, 115 pound woman.
I
It's just,
and then in
you
that
know what
same
I'm saying,
aspect,
right?
yeah. It's in the same aspect as you don't expect Marco Stunt to beat Luchasaurus.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you. Yep.
if
Yep.
you have someone like the size of maybe Laredo Kid versus Tessa Blanchard, you could kind of see how that would go.
Yeah.
But or in this case of like, I'm not going to use Miro, but like if it's a Lance Archer and you have someone that's tiny maneuvering around him, tricking him, taking out in the legs, it's like, okay, that's more believable.
Right, right. You could duck and dive kind of a
Right.
thing, which I like that. It kind of makes it interesting in some ways.
And actually, something from the '90s, like Rey Mysterio did against Kevin Nash.
The 1, 2, 3 kid versus Razor
Or
Ramon,
Razor,
very
yeah,
famous.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That for, I I was trying to think who did it first, and I couldn't. I'm like, I know it was Scott Hall, but I couldn't remember who the other one was.
Right, right. Yeah, it was Razor versus Kid, which they did wonderfully.
Yeah.
They had Kid come in and just look like a schlep, and just get beat for a couple of months straight. You'd see him on Saturday mornings, and then one day, out of nowhere, that happened. And believe it or not, the first win I ever got in the old WWF was in a similar angle, right before I became Aldo. When I was wrestling as PJ Walker, I was on Monday Night Raw versus IRS Mike Rotundo, and
Mm.
I was getting my ass beat. It was on Live Raw, and as I'm getting my butt beat, they had a feud. Razor Ramon comes down to ringside, and as and IRS is got his back to me on the ropes, jaw jacking with Razor, and then I come up from behind and pin IRS because of Razor's distraction. So a couple times they tried to redo that again. They did it with me there. And that was my first ever win. But that was to just get those guys' feud over more than me. I wasn't the focus. It was, for Razor to
You're
get one up on IRS. You know what I mean?
you're just the
The
extra
means
character,
to an end.
right?
And then they also did it, if you remember correctly, Barry Horowitz beating Skip from the Body Donnas. Remember that? Chris
Barely,
Candido?
yeah. I barely remember, but yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
it.
it was like, yeah, Barry Horowitz, the perennial loser, and then for some reason or whatever, I don't even remember, but he got the big 1, 2, 3 against Candido, and that was another big thing. So WWE, when they hit gold with the 1, 2, 3 kid, they tried it a couple of different times to minimal success. So that's got to be a gimmick that's used sparingly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can only do it so many times before. Actually, you could kind of argue they tried it again with Maven and the Undertaker at the Royal
Oh,
Rumble.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, you know what? They haven't done it in a long time.
No, no, and
You
I'm
know.
not sure if they will because a lot of their guys that are coming up, especially from NXT, are on the smaller side.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't know how long that's going to be though,
Uh,
because if you look at it, they've revamped the whole thing. Where I see a lot of small, or excuse me, I see a lot of bigger athletes
yeah.
than I did. Remember? Did you see Rick Steiner's kid?
Yes, I was gonna say
Wow.
the one thing one I'm impressed by him, but two, you could tell he's a
Yes, you
Steiner.
can. Yep.
Yeah, this
Yep.
clothesline looked just like Rick's. He looks like Scott in the face.
His
So,
movements in the ring, like the way, because I worked with the Steiners as a tag team in the early days quite a bit, and just the movements, like they would take like a step before they would, bend their knees and suplex you. Just like all the little things. The
Yeah.
clothesline looks exactly like Rick's.
Yeah. And when he
You
did
know?
the belly to belly, he looked just like Scott too.
Yep, exactly. The way he just kind of kicks out his hips, it just looks perfect.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. But that's the difference. A guy like that is a bona fide stud and a
Mhm.
bona fide, like he could be a professional athlete. It was a defensive or
He was a fullback he was a fullback.
A D1. He was a D1 guy, and I think he became a pro. Did he? Didn't
Yeah,
he?
he was
For a little bit.
he was picked up by the Ravens as a free
Mm,
agent, and
that's
then
right. Fullback.
yeah,
Fullback. He was a fullback, I believe.
yep,
Yep.
yeah, and like you said, he's gonna be a star,
Oh
obviously.
yeah. Big time. Well, that's I think what they want. Because NXT, although, when NXT first came to the scene before AEW did, they really just gouged Ring of Honor in a lot of the indies all across the world.
And Pro Wrestling
You know,
Guerrilla and all that, yeah.
yep, absolutely. And I think that they focused on that, which not unfortunately, but the reality is a lot of those guys are smaller.
Yeah, yeah,
They're thinner, they're smaller, and I think by going to ex college players, it's just you're getting that. Although some of them aren't that great, but
mm.
some of them are, and you could see with what is his name in the ring?
Which one? Rick Steiner's
Steiner's kid,
Brock Breaker, or Braun Breaker,
Braun Breaker. Wow, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, horrible name. Why don't they just call him? Why don't they just call him a Steiner?
Yeah, originally the report was he was gonna be Rex Steiner, which is a take on his real last name, Rex
Right,
Steiner.
Rex Steiner. Yeah.
But
Yep.
the theory is people think he's not using it right now because they don't want to draw comparisons to Rick and Scott, and Rick and Scott aren't tied to the WWE right now. So it's not like an Orton where Bob Orton would walk out or Rick Steiner would walk out with Charlotte. So I think they're going to draw the separation right now. I think it's going to be a situation where he goes by Steiner later in his career.
Yeah. I mean, I think eventually it will happen because you just can't not go there because the Steiners, I mean, it would hurt the kid because the Steiners were one of the true greats of all time, in my opinion, in the 90s and forward. And to not acknowledge that this kid has, that kind of legacy, you don't have to focus on it a lot. You could just remember when Jim Ross used to say, well, he came from, University of blah, 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 blah.
Right.
All you got to do is kind of, if you don't want to use the Steiners name for that reason that they're not contracted, I respect it. I understand it. But still, say it once. You don't have to say it again.
Right.
But let people know that this kid comes from that blood, because everybody's saying it anyways,
Yeah.
Everybody's saying it. So let the fans and maybe new fans that maybe don't realize it, let everybody in. That's what they got to do.
And realistically, so one of the things you said is one of the greatest tag teams. To be honest, I was a WCW guy. So they're actually
me too. I was a huge WCW guy, yeah.
And they were actually my favorite tag team from WCW. The other part of it is, now I'm thinking of it from a marketing perspective.
Okay.
They can say, for like you said, new fans, he comes for the Steiners. You can look up old Steiners on the WWE Network or Peacock and see see where his dad and his uncle did. To me, that's one way you can sell subscriptions for people that want to get caught up on the past. Oh, okay, that's where that's what they did.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. And someday, if that time ever came where you wanted to maybe give Rick Steiner a shot to come in and help with his son, if the kid got into an angle with someone, and you bring in the old man, or you bring in both of them, the uncle and the old man, it doesn't have to be this week, but maybe in a year or two. Either way, you win. You win because you get the opportunity to further this kid, give him this exposure and this rub, and also you get the nostalgia pop for the Steiners coming in.
Right.
So it's everybody wins. You don't have to. I don't know. That's just me, but obviously the WWE doesn't always think like that. But let's get back on point.
Yeah, let's get back on point.
Because we went way to the left on this one.
Yeah.
Which is okay. That was a great conversation.
Yeah. So John Moxley versus, and honestly, this is kind of funny. So way to the left, Satoshi Kojima. Now, there was like no build to